Please help me, sir." The words cracked as they left Selina Brooks's mouth, thin and shaking like glass about to shatter. She dropped to her knees on the polished marble floor of the Argentum, her fingers clutching the tailored pant leg of Alexander Grant, the billionaire whose name carried more weight in this city than most laws. The room froze. No one touched Alexander Grant without permission. Not senators, not donors, not family, and certainly not a maid. Selina's chest burned as she tried to pull in air. Rainwater soaked her black and white uniform, plastering the fabric to her skin. Her short curls clung to her temples. One shoe was gone. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold on. Alexander looked down at her. At 45, he was a man shaped by control. Steel gray eyes, a face carved by discipline, not softness. He had built empires by knowing when to act and when to wait. His silence was feared more than most men's anger. He did not push her away. He studied her, really studied her, and then spoke in a voice so calm it cut through the tension like a blade. "Who is coming?" Selina swallowed. Her throat felt raw, scraped by fear and running and something worse. "He's coming for me," she whispered. "He says I belong to him. He has a badge, but he hurts people. He hurts me." A murmur rippled through the room. Alexander's head of security, Cole, had already risen from his seat near the wall, posture alert, eyes flicking toward the entrance. Alexander lifted one finger. "Stop." Selina's vision blurred. Her wrists throbbed. Beneath the sleeve of her uniform, bruises bloomed in ugly shades of purple and yellow, fresh and old, a quiet record of survival. Only minutes earlier she had been in her apartment. The lock had rattled first, then the door shook once, twice, wood splintering under the force of a boot. Selina had jumped from the couch, heart slamming against her ribs. She barely had time to grab her bag before the door gave way. Raymond Thorne stood there, rain slicking his jacket, eyes wild. "You stupid girl," he snarled, shoving her back. "You think you can run from me?"
"You think you can steal from me?" She had raised her hands instinctively, and that was when he grabbed her wrist, twisting hard enough that she cried out. "You're nothing without me," he hissed. "Open your mouth and I'll bury you." Pain flared. Fear threatened to pin her to the floor. Then something inside her snapped. She shoved him harder than she knew she could. Raymond stumbled, crashing into the kitchen table. A lamp shattered. He swore, lunging again. Selina ran barefoot down the stairs into the rain, through traffic and noise and terror. She didn't know why she ran toward the Argentum, only that she knew who owned it. She knew who sat at the top. She knew he was dangerous, and somehow she knew that was exactly why she might survive. Back in the dining room, Alexander reached down and placed two fingers lightly against Selina's shoulder. The contact was brief, deliberate, grounding. "Get her a towel," he said. The command was quiet, absolute. A server hurried forward, draping a thick white towel around Selina's shoulders. She clutched it like a lifeline. Then the doors burst open. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of rain and asphalt and rage. "Selina!" Detective Raymond Thorne strode inside, soaked, furious, flashing his badge like a weapon. "Get away from him now." Alexander didn't stand. He turned his head slowly, regarding Raymond as one might regard a stain on a cuff. "Do you have business here?" Alexander asked. "She's my wife," Raymond snapped. "She stole evidence. I'm taking her in." "She's a member of my staff," Alexander replied, "and you're interrupting a private dinner." Raymond stepped closer, eyes locked on Selina. "You don't get to block police business." Alexander rose. The movement was unhurried, controlled. When he reached his full height, the room felt smaller. "You came into my establishment," Alexander said, tracked a terrified woman, and raised your voice. Raymond laughed once, sharp and ugly. "She's lying!" Alexander's gaze dropped to the bruises visible at Selina's wrist, then lifted again. "I didn't ask," he said, "and I don't care." Raymond's patience snapped. He lunged. It happened fast. Raymond grabbed for Selina's arm, trying to wrench her free. Chairs scraped back. Someone shouted. Selina screamed as pain shot up her shoulder. Alexander moved. He stepped between them in a single stride, shoving Raymond back with a force that sent him stumbling. "That was your last mistake," Alexander said, voice low. Raymond swung, a wild punch aimed at Alexander's jaw. It never landed. Cole and another guard were on him instantly. One pinned Raymond's arm, the other drove him back against a column. Raymond fought, spitting curses, trying to break free. "Get your hands off me," he roared. "You have no authority." "Enough," Alexander said.
The word cut through the chaos. "Remove him," Alexander continued. "If he resists, restrain him. If he escalates, end it." Cole nodded once. They dragged Raymond toward the doors as he thrashed, his threats dissolving into fury and fear. "This isn't over," he shouted. "You hear me? I'll come back with warrants." The doors closed. Silence fell again, deeper this time. Selina sagged, strength draining now that the danger had been forced away. Alexander turned to her. "Come with me," he said. She looked up, eyes glassy. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You didn't," he replied. "You asked for help. That mattered." Later, in the back of a black town car, gliding through the wet streets of Manhattan, Selina sat wrapped in a blanket, staring at her hands. They still shook. Alexander sat across from her, watching the city lights smear across the windows. His phone buzzed with messages he didn't read. He had spent his life choosing battles carefully. But when a woman ran to him bleeding and afraid and begged, some things weren't strategy. Some things were vows. And he had already made one. If Selina's fear and courage moved you, please tap like and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because someone near you might be hearing this story at the very same moment. The silence inside the town car was thick, broken only by the soft hum of tires on wet pavement. Selina sat curled in the far corner of the back seat, wrapped in a heavy blanket that still smelled faintly of citrus and starch. Her fingers gripped the fabric as if it were the last thread keeping her together. Alexander Grant sat across from her, legs crossed, one arm draped over the leather armrest. The city lights outside reflected against the tinted windows, streaks of gold and red sliding across his sharp features. He wasn't looking at her, at least not directly, but she could feel his attention in the air between them. He had barely said a word since they left the Argentum. No demands, no questions, just that steady, unreadable expression. Selina kept her eyes down, watching the rain bead on the window, watching the world blur past. She still hadn't processed what she had done. She had run. She had fought back. She had clung to a man whose name was whispered in elite circles, feared and respected in equal measure. And he had helped her. She didn't know why. "You're bleeding," he said at last, breaking the silence. His voice was smooth but sharp, like silk pulled over steel. Selina blinked. "What?" He reached into the compartment beside him and pulled out a compact first aid kit. He flipped it open with one hand and removed an antiseptic wipe.
Then, without asking, he leaned forward and gently took her hand. Selina flinched, instinctively trying to pull back. "I'm not him," he said softly. Her shoulders stiffened, but she let him take her hand. The touch of the alcohol stung against the torn skin on her knuckles. She winced but said nothing. "Your wrist is likely sprained," he continued. "From when he grabbed you," she nodded. "He's done it before." Alexander didn't respond immediately. He finished cleaning the cut, then wrapped her wrist in gauze with clinical precision. "You fought back," he said finally. "I had to." Her voice was quiet. "He said he'd kill me, that if I ever told anyone, he'd make sure I disappeared. He's connected. He knows judges, internal affairs. Cops like him always do." Alexander sat back, studying her. "But you didn't just run. You came to me." "I didn't know where else to go," she said truthfully. "You were the only name I knew that scared people like him."
The billionaire tilted his head slightly. "And how did you know my name scared people like him?" Selina hesitated. "One of the waitstaff told me. Said you don't make threats, you make examples." That earned the barest twitch of a smile from him, gone in an instant. "I'm not a good man, Miss Brooks," he said. "You should know that now." "I'm not looking for a good man," she whispered. "Just a safe place." It got a created doing. The car turned off the main road, entering a quieter neighborhood lined with trees and stone walls. Beyond the windshield, the wrought iron gates of an estate loomed large, flanked by cameras and 2 security guards in raincoats. Selina's breath hitched. "This is your home?" one of them. The gates opened without a word. The car followed the winding drive through a landscaped lawn, stopping in front of a sprawling stone mansion. Old money architecture, understated in the way that only immense wealth could afford. Cole was waiting outside, umbrella in hand. He opened the door before the car came to a full stop. "Boss," he said with a curt nod. "Perimeter secure, no signs of tailing." "Good," Alexander replied, stepping out first. He turned and offered a hand to Selina. She stared at it for a beat, then placed hers in his. The moment she stood, the cold night air slapped her across the face. Her wet clothes clung to her skin, making her shiver. She clutched the blanket tighter. Alexander led her up the steps, past the grand oak doors and into warmth. The foyer was massive, double-height ceilings, a chandelier that looked like it belonged in a museum, dark hardwood floors gleaming with polish. But everything was quiet, dimly lit. Not a house made for show, but for power. A house that had seen deals, secrets, and silences. "Follow me," he said. Selina obeyed, shoes squelching slightly against the floor. He led her up the wide staircase, past portraits she didn't recognize, men in military uniforms, women in gowns from other centuries. They stopped in front of a door. He opened it. "This will be your room for tonight," he said. "There are clean clothes in the closet. Use whatever you need. A doctor will check your injuries in the morning." Selina stepped inside. The room was larger than her entire apartment. The bed was king-sized, dressed in soft grays and creams. A fireplace sat quietly in the corner. She turned to him. "Why are you doing this?" He looked at her for a long moment, then softly. "Because you asked." He stepped back into the hall. "Rest. We'll talk tomorrow." She hesitated. "Mr. Grant?" "Alexander," he corrected. She nodded slowly. "Thank you." He didn't reply, just closed the door. Alone now, Selina locked the door out of habit, then dragged an armchair in front of it. Her body ached, her heart thudded, but she was alive. She moved to the bed, the blanket still around her shoulders, and collapsed onto the mattress. The scent of the pillow was expensive leather and cedar, and something darker. She let her eyes close, and for the first time in weeks, she slept without fear. Downstairs, Alexander stepped into his study. Cole waited by the fireplace. "You want me to dig into the detective?" "Already have people on it," Alexander said. He poured himself a scotch. "But I want it faster. I want every file, every cover-up, every person who's protected him." "You think it goes deep?" "I know it does." He turned toward the window. "A man like that doesn't beat women because he's angry. He does it because he thinks he can." Cole nodded. "Understood." Alexander swirled the amber liquid in his glass, his jaw tight. "She trusted me," he murmured. "I don't know why that matters," Cole said. "Nothing." Outside, the rain kept falling, washing over the estate like a quiet promise. Selina had asked for help. Now she had it, and Alexander Grant wasn't the kind of man who gave something for free. He protected what was his, and tonight, that included her. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, filtered by sheer curtains that fluttered in the early morning breeze. Selina stirred beneath soft cotton sheets she never imagined touching, surrounded by silence too heavy to be peace. She woke slowly, her body aching in places she hadn't noticed the night before. Her wrist throbbed beneath the gauze, her lower back radiated dull pain from where she'd hit the floor during the struggle with Raymond. But more than that, it was the weight in her chest, a kind of bruised stillness that held her down. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then she saw the fireplace, the deep gray walls, the art that wasn't just decoration, but investment. And the memory came back. The pleading, the touch, the billionaire's voice cutting through chaos like a blade. She sat up too quickly, dizziness blooming behind her eyes. A soft knock startled her. She turned. "Come in," she said hoarsely. The door opened just enough for a tall woman in her 50s to step inside. Elegant, severe, dressed in black slacks and a cream blouse buttoned all the way up. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled into a neat bun. "I'm Eleanor," she said briskly, "house manager. Mr. Grant asked me to bring you something to wear." She handed over a fresh bundle, leggings, a soft blue sweater, undergarments, even warm socks. Everything smelled like lavender and order. Selina mumbled her thanks. "There's breakfast waiting downstairs. When you're ready," Eleanor added. "And a doctor." "A doctor? You need one?" the woman said, nodding at her wrist. "Mr. Grant insists." Selina held her gaze. "Is this how he always treats people in trouble?" "No," Eleanor said simply. "You're the exception." The door shut quietly behind her. Selina got dressed slowly. The clothes fit perfectly, which unnerved her. How had they known her size? Downstairs, the house opened up like a secret. She passed a grand piano, shelves of leather-bound books, and framed black and white photographs of people she didn't recognize. Not celebrities, but real people. Family. Soldiers. Pioneers. In the dining room, a long table sat under a modern chandelier. A place had been set. Fresh fruit, scrambled eggs, toast, and what smelled like real brewed coffee. A man stood beside the windows, his back to her, looking out onto the rain-drenched lawn. Alexander. "Good morning," he said without turning. "Morning," Selina said quietly. He finally turned to face her. He wore dark slacks and a navy pullover, no suit today, but he still looked every inch the man who owned half of New York's skyline. "You slept?" he asked. She nodded. "Better than I have in a long time." He gestured to the food. "Eat." She sat. He remained standing, hands in his pockets. "I had Cole pull every record he could find on Raymond Thorne," Alexander said. "There are gaps, too many transfers. Internal Affairs closed multiple complaints." "All sealed?" Selina's stomach nodded. "I figured," she murmured. "There's something else," he continued. "Do you know a man named Marcus Fielding?" She froze. "Yes, he was Raymond's partner." "Recent intel says Fielding's been missing for 6 months, officially on leave." "Unofficially?" "Unofficially." He handed her a printout from his pocket, a police bulletin. Last seen days after submitting an anonymous report to a journalist. That journalist died in a hit-and-run 2 weeks later. Selina stared at the paper. Her breath caught. "They're covering something," she whispered. Alexander nodded. "I believe so, but I won't make assumptions until I see the evidence." She looked up. "What do you mean?" "You mentioned a flash drive, files, proof." Selina swallowed. Her fingers gripped the edge of the table. "I didn't bring it. It's hidden." "Where?" "In a ventilation grate. My old apartment, back bedroom, under the radiator." "Cole will retrieve it," Alexander said immediately. Selina hesitated. "What are you going to do with it?" Alexander walked to the sideboard, poured himself a coffee, and leaned against the counter. "That depends on what's on it. But if what you've said is true, then this doesn't just end with one dirty cop." "I'm scared," she said. "You should be," he replied. "What you're part of now, what you've witnessed, it doesn't go away. They will come again. Not with rage next time, with lawyers, with stories, with character assassination." She blinked at him. "And you still want to help me?" "I don't help people," he said plainly. "I protect investments, and I don't like being threatened in my own restaurant with modding." Selina's lips parted, but then she saw something in his expression, something behind the sharpness, a flicker of something buried. "You lost someone, didn't you?" she asked. Alexander didn't move, but the air in the room shifted. My sister, he said. Emma, 19. She came to me once, told me she was scared of her boyfriend. I thought she was being dramatic. He sipped his coffee. She died 6 months later, pushed down a flight of stairs. They said it was an accident. It is backed, Selena whispered. I'm sorry, he shrugged. It doesn't change anything, but it taught me this. When someone begs for help, you don't ask for credentials. They stood in silence. Then a knock at the front door echoed through the house. Cole's voice called faintly from the hall. Boss, you'll want to see this. Alexander motioned for Selena to stay seated. He stepped into the foyer. Outside on the front step was a small box, no return label, just his name written in thick black marker. Cole held it carefully. Scanned for explosives? Clean. Alexander opened the box. Inside, a single item, one of Selena's earrings, blood on the backing, and a note. You think you've won? You haven't. She's mine. Alexander's jaw tightened. He turned to Cole. Lock this place down. Double security. Nobody in or out. Cole nodded. Understood. Alexander stared out into the trees beyond his gate. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The estate shifted before her eyes. Selena watched through the second-floor window as black SUVs pulled into the circular drive, one after another, each carrying men in dark tactical gear. Silent, efficient, controlled, like a security agency, but more private, more dangerous. Down below, Cole spoke into a headset, directing them as if they were part of a well-rehearsed drill. The gates closed, the cameras panned. 2 men stood at every exit, drones buzzed above the trees. Selena had seen police raids before, but this wasn't law enforcement. This was war preparation, a war she never meant to start. She backed away from the window, her hands trembling. The sweater Eleanor had given her suddenly felt too tight, too clean for what was happening. Her body still ached from the bruises Raymond had left. Her wrist, though wrapped neatly, throbbed with every heartbeat. She turned as the door opened behind her. It was Alexander. He didn't knock, he didn't ask, he simply stepped inside, carrying the blood-stained earring in one hand and the note in the other. Selena froze, her breath hitched. You recognize this? He asked, his voice even. Her eyes dropped to the earring. It was hers. The gold one, part of the only pair she'd ever bought with her own paycheck, her first month working at the Argentum. She nodded. I lost it during the struggle. In the apartment. Alexander held her gaze. He found it, and he left it on my doorstep, along with a warning. Selena swallowed hard. He knows where I am. He knows where I am, Alexander corrected, and he's bold enough to test my reach. Should I leave? She asked suddenly. I don't want you in danger because of me. He blinked. You think I helped you because...